Hello there. This is my King 8K Goldstone. This is an Elshaw and Son razor from Sheffield, England. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back to 8K and then refresh it on my Elshaw. Normally, I would just go to the Elshaw with some slurry. It's perfectly capable of handling the job without an 8K. Now, if you let your razor go too long, you'll need to go back to the 8 or maybe even a 3K or 5K or you know, that 4K that's in between there. But I try not to let my razors go that far. The only reason that I am doing this is because this razor, number one, was given to me by a good friend and a subscriber, and number two, this is a favorite razor of mine, and I want as beautiful of an edge on this razor as I can get. I want that on all my razors, honestly, but this is, like I said, it's special to me, and so I want to just give it a little extra love. And I'm using a slight rolling X, a very, very slight, not anything that would cause any issues. This razor really doesn't have any geometry issues to speak of, but it has just a little bit of a smile, and I'm not really even lifting the razor off the stone, or if I am, it's not very much. I just kind of want to concentrate on that smile because I want that preserved. And that should be plenty, plenty, plenty on a 8K. I want to look at it through a loop just because. And yeah, that looks lovely. So what I'm going to do now is rinse this off. And set that up to dry, and then I'm going to take my Elshaw and the toner I'm going to use on it and run it under some water. This is a good practice with any stone you use. Run that, if you keep your stones out or you wipe your stones off with a cloth before you put them away, it's a good idea to run it under some cold water and rub your hand across that stone while that cold water is running over top of it to try to make sure there's no kind of grit or contaminants or anything like that on the stone before you go to honing on it. Now, I want to keep them. This Tomo was given to me by a good friend. It's just a chunk off a Japanese natural stone. I don't know for sure what type, but I've honed on this little Tomo, and it generates an absolutely fantastic edge. So we're just going to go and do some passes on this. And you can already see how gray that slurry is already? It was almost white, but the stone is cutting pretty good. What I'll do, when it starts looking like it's getting thick, which it is, I'll moisten it with some water so that it doesn't degrade the edge rather than work on it. And if I need more slurry, I'll make more slurry. And I tend a lot of times on this and on cauticles and J-Nats or anything else that actually has a slurry, I tend to kind of refresh the slurry from time to time. But these stones, now see that white? How white that slurry is? It turned gray really quick at first, and it'll do it again. But they don't really take very long. These are fantastic stones. Now this is an Escher, but it's a Thuringian. That's what it is, a Thuringian, or however people want to pronounce it. It's a slate stone, type of slate. And Eschers are kind of prized because of the brand. The brand is prized more, and it's prized more because Elshaw had really high standards, the company, because that's what we're talking about. They had really high standards, and people knew it. And so Eschers command a bit more money on the market because of that. There's a lot of snobbery and snootery and whatever else you want to call it around them, just like there are around certain J-Nats and all of that stuff, okay? Cauticles, that kind of deal. But just because a Thuringian or Thuringian, whichever way you want to pronounce it, I'll pronounce it both from time to time, just because that stone happens to not have an Elshaw label doesn't mean that it's not as good of a stone. That's something that you have to test out for yourself with your individual stone, and honestly, in my opinion, you would have to do that with an Elshaw as well. But there are plenty of Thuringians that are not labeled, or that have a different label than Elshaw, that can be fantastic stones. And so I just wanted to mention that, because for me, this stone is the best stone razor hone, just a razor hone, not a finisher, not a post finisher or anything like that. I've got a couple of J-Nats, I've got a caudicle. I'd like to have another caudicle, by the way. But I've got a caudicle, I've got a couple of J-Nats, I've got my black Arkansas, I've got a 12K Nano, okay? 3/4 of that was given to me. This stone I bought for $1. at a flea market or a thrift store. I didn't know for sure what it was. The label on the back is kind of messed up, but it is an Elshaw. But I couldn't be for sure because I'd never seen one in person before, and they wanted $1 for it, and I took a chance on this stone. When I got it home and started looking at the labeling through my loop, it plainly said Elshaw on the back of it. And I jumped for joy. And it's a fantastic stone. It leaves a incredible. I don't want to degrade the edge too much by going back to a thicker slurry. Anyway, it's an incredible razor hone. And I would encourage you, if you've never tried a Thuringian and you're looking for another experience, another type of hone, a different type of edge than what you're used to getting, and you can find a good one, give them a shot, because I've not found anything, with the exception of taking something like this, or the conical edge, or a J-knot edge, and going to a black Arkansas and post finishing on a black. If I were to take this edge that I have right here, because I'm pretty much got one, if I were to take this to a black Arkansas and post finish on that, this is going to be a screaming edge anyway, but that black, it does something to everything it touches. Alright, what I'll do, that's the hone. What I'll do, and I just refresh those slurries, because when you look at slurries on a natural stone, a lot of times what will happen is that slurry will kind of thin out or refine before I think I've ran on that slurry long enough, and so I'll refresh it and bring it back up and just coax as much out of it as I possibly can in order to try to achieve the edge that I want. But that's the honing. Bless you. Thanks for watching. Later.